So Egnyte offers mission control for critical content. I think that's the sort of catchphrase on the website. So can you tell us a little bit about what that actually means in practice? And I guess that will also involve giving us a bit of a high level view of the platform that you offer.
Yeah, so Egnyte from its beginnings was a platform where you could store unstructured data. Think any other cloud file sharing product, except for the fact that instead of being user-centric, like some of your other traditional cloud file sharing products, it allows you to mimic the on-premise file server in the cloud. Okay, so you're taking what customers are familiar with and just putting it in the cloud with the same file structure, the same types of permissions. So it makes it very easy to manage that mission critical data, because a lot of companies have, very critical Excel documents, Word files, all of those types of things that are mission critical to a business. So being able to move them to the cloud in that same structure allows you to maintain exactly what you had before. Now, on top of that, what makes it a mission control is that because you have now this web interface into it, you have that administrative control. So users get the nice ease of use, flexibility, and familiarity with their existing solution, but administrators get this very easy view and control into the entire organization, rather than, like I said, with some of those other cloud file sharing solutions, having to manage them user by user. This gives the organization that mission critical view into how the data is organized, stored, and protected.
And in terms of what's possible or what the platform offers, perhaps we can drill down a little bit. So you could say a little bit about each of the following. So sharing and collaboration is one of the obvious benefits of the platform.
Right, so in sharing and collaboration, obviously, because we're moving that unstructured data to the cloud, you now have the ability to open up new possibilities for sharing and collaboration. On an on-premise file server, in order to share a Word document, you'd have to attach it to an email and send it to somebody. That's really the only way to share that document outside of the organization. Now that we've moved it to the web, you can now share that by sending a link. So instead of having to attach a file which may be too big to be sent by email, you can actually send a link that can be protected, because it can be set to only open a couple number of times. It can be set to expire on a certain date, or kind of a worst case scenario, if you accidentally send a sensitive file to somebody else, you have all the way up until the time they open that email and click on that link to retract that link and make it invalid again. So there's a lot of things that you can do around sharing. And then when it comes to collaboration, what Egnyte does is, because we have this web interface, you can actually share those links, but also collaborate on files and make notes. You can @mention people in those notes, so you can actually have a type of workflow alongside of those documents inside of the Egnyte platform.
And I guess the thing that always impressed me, the clever thing is, if there are multiple collaborators, if you like, all working on the file, at some point when they all close it down or whatever, you end up with the most up-to-date copy, as opposed to one that hasn't got everybody's input. Is that right?
Yeah, and we actually do a couple of things around that. That's an interesting point you bring up, because we've brought some new features relatively recently to our co-editing piece. For a long time now, like I said, we kind of offer that same experience as the on-premise file server, where if you're used to it, you opened a Word document, and then anybody else who opened it after that said that the file was locked and they could only open it read-only. So we have that traditional functionality to maintain that familiarity, but then we also have added new functionality to work alongside of Microsoft 365 and Google Workspace, where now, because people have gotten familiar with the co-editing capabilities of those platforms, you can now do that same co-editing on Google Workspace documents or Microsoft 365 documents from within Egnyte.
Excellent. And moving on, we've got something, again, it's a concept that's been around for quite a long time, but lifecycle management. How does the platform contribute to what can be quite a complex and how should we say, exasperating process if it's not done properly.
Yeah, because lifecycle management is very important, right? Especially when it comes to having data spread out. So data sprawl is a problem. Also having outdated but sensitive data, right? If you don't need to keep somebody's credit card number anymore, you don't need that data in your system. So one of the things that Egnyte does is it allows you to monitor for having all of these pieces of data in different places. So you can classify sensitive data and know if you have it in multiple locations, in locations where it's not supposed to reside, where maybe people who shouldn't have permissions to those files do have permissions, so you can control that type of data sprawl. And then you can see how old files are and be able to, remediate that life cycle type of thing. And you can actually use the Egnyte platform to archive those documents so that you still keep them in perpetuity if you need to because of legal holds or whatever type of requirements you might have on that data, but it takes it out of the access view of the normal users and is only accessible to those who have access to the archive.
And you mentioned that you gave the sort of credit card number example as, if it's not needing to be kept. So that's a sort of security angle, I guess, as well. And data security, I presume there are other sort of areas around data security, which is probably the number one pain point. Everyone wrestles with cybersecurity. It's here, there, everywhere, isn't it? So how does the platform sort of help people get a grip on that side of things?
So there's a couple of different things, obviously, because there's a bunch of different ways that you have to protect data. The first one is knowing what data you have. So there are lots of different compliances out there, GDPR, CCPA. Here in the States, we have HIPAA for medical information. And so you have to have a system that can go out there and identify where that data is based on those different compliance needs. And so Egnyte does that. Egnyte is constantly scanning that data so that, again, like I mentioned before, you can make sure that that sensitive data is only in the places in your data architecture that it's supposed to be. So that's number one. Number two is you want to apply some artificial intelligence, some reasoning to the way the data is used. So there's a couple of things we do. Number one, just in terms of protecting logins, access to the data. If I log in from the UK and I log in from North Carolina, the system's going to recognize that and go, no, there's something off there. If I typically work on 20 files a day and I suddenly download 100, it's going to flag that and say, no, this looks like I'm leaving and I'm trying to take a whole bunch of data with me. And so the administrators would be notified. And then the one that's most relevant to, I think, everyone right now is if we start seeing a lot of files change, AKA ransomware, we're going to recognize that immediately, be able to remove the authorization for that login and stop that encryption. And then, of course, the second part of that is always being able to roll back that data to the previous unencrypted state. And we have the ability to do that because you can basically specify how many different versions of the file you want kept at any given time. So you can roll those back after they've been encrypted.
Okay, and adjacent, I guess, to data security, we've got compliance and audit. So again, in your answer there, you sort of reference a bit of that, but I'm guessing that sort of trail of data, copies, etc., and what needs to maybe be produced, as you mentioned, sort of HIPAA or whoever it might be inquiring about something. Is that what you mean by that, or are there other sort of angles that the platform covers?
So when we're talking about compliance, the first step obviously is classification. You have to know where that data is, how much you have of it, and how you're going to handle it. But the second part is making sure that you can fix it when the problems arise where you find that data out of place. Egnyte makes it very simple by basically notifying you that there's data out of place and giving you a nice big green fix button that allows you to click that fix button and move that data to where it needs to be. And in addition to that, a lot of times, if you have a compliance issue, you're going to have to go through an audit. And so with Egnyte, you're able to run a lot of different reports that give you the auditing information that you might need in, the circumstance where you are in breach of compliance, or they're coming in to audit you for something. And a great example of that is in a lot of situations when there is a breach, one of the most important things you need to know is what was affected. And so Egnyte will give you very good access to exactly what files might have been compromised, so that you can limit the scope of that breach to only what was affected.
Okay, and I think the final sort of strand of the platform that you promote is content intelligence. But clearly, a lot of what we've talked about, you've been alluding to content intelligence, the fact that you're understanding a lot about data. But is there a sort of overarching, again, we're maybe back to more lifecycle management, but what sort of intelligence, other than what you've discussed, is, the other bits of intelligence that you can use as part of the solution?
Yeah, so we've kind of mentioned each of the pieces as we've gone through the different things that we've covered already, but it's really that mindset approach to, first of all, being able to classify it against, hundreds of different compliance regulations, right? I was in there the other day and looking just to see which things we support. And here in the US, I was personally not aware of how many states have their own regulations for data compliance. And so one of the things where Egnyte really helps here is we put those rules in place so that if you need a certain compliance, all you have to do is check a box. And now we're automatically classifying that data and doing that information that, classifying that information and notifying you of potential risks with that information. We're doing things like checking for ransomware signatures. So think traditional antivirus type functionality there. So that's one layer. And then we're adding those artificial intelligence, that machine learning type of things, where for each individual user, like I mentioned before, if I download 20 files a day and suddenly I download 100, that's weird for me. But somebody else in the organization may regularly work on 150 files a day, and that's not unusual for them. So we're using that artificial intelligence to look at specific users, specific data, to determine what the risk and what the actions might be for those individual pieces and users.
And for looking sort of towards the channel, I mean, some of them may want to sell it as, this kind of mission critical content management, but I'm guessing a lot more sort of resonance with maybe their customers is, particular issues. So you've alluded to ransomware. I'm thinking remote working might also, particularly with what's happened during the pandemic, and also moving data. I don't know whether on-premise to cloud, or maybe from cloud to cloud. So those some of the applications where the platform has a big role to play.
Yeah. So specifically in the work from anywhere situation that we find ourselves in, right? So this is a situation where Egnyte really excels, because there's zero training required when moving somebody from an on-premise server to the Egnyte platform, because they're using the exact same drive letter. Literally, we've had partners deploy the solution on a Friday afternoon after everybody went home. And then on Monday morning, when all those employees came back in, they literally had no idea that anything had changed, because same drive letter, same file structure, same permissions, everything just works exactly the same. And that goes for if they're working from home on a personal computer or working at their desk in the office. It's the same drive letter. They don't have to connect to a VPN. Makes it very simple for that migration to happen. Now, speaking of migration, in addition to our professional services team, which is available to our channel partners, if they have a complex migration, that's where the professional services team can step in and help walk them through that entire situation. But we also have a migration tool if you're specifically going from that on-premise server to the cloud. Makes it super easy for a channel partner to migrate that on-premise server into the Egnyte platform.
Okay, so in terms of you've explained beautifully all the sort of benefits of the platform and stuff, but I guess just if you could re-emphasize from a technology perspective what it is that the Egnyte platform does, if a channel organization, is looking to onboard this kind of solution, what would be the technology benefits of what you're offering as opposed to some of the other, content management systems out there?
So the technology benefits, first of all, you have obvious benefits of moving from on-prem to the cloud because you gain all of the collaboration, sharing, all of those things that we've already talked about. But in addition to that, in terms of the channel partner specifically, let's talk about the MSP who's managing that on-premise server. All of the tools, all of the time that it takes to manage that on-premise server, all of the risk involved with hardware failure, all of the costs involved with a 5 to 7 year refresh on that server, all of those now go away because all you're having to do is manage the actual data in the cloud. You're not having to worry about patch management. You're not having to worry about hard drives failing. All of those things that are costs to the MSP. So we're removing those costs out of the equation and making it easier for the MSP to manage. And therefore, traditional MSP model, now they can manage more customers and therefore make more money.
And in terms of, you mentioned the professional services a couple of answers back, but in terms of we've talked about the technology benefits, but I guess the infrastructure benefits, if that, or organizational benefits, I suppose after sales maybe is what I'm trying to say. So again, what is it that Egnyte can offer the channel in the way of support, once they've onboarded the customer?
So once we've onboarded the customer, obviously, as with any other channel solution, the partner is going to act as the first level of tech support. Typically, we look at that as the administration. We don't expect the partner to fix a problem when there's a problem with the platform. That's why they have direct access to our technical support team, right? They have a special number reserved just for partners that allows them to get in contact with the support team. Now, in addition to the technical aspects of being able to support the product and those types of things, we offer training. So from sales, marketing, to onboarding, to the technical administration of the product, we have that training built in to a partner portal that we have stood up. That partner portal also gives them a whole bunch of marketing materials that all they have to do is upload their logo and their information, and where we've designed those marketing pieces to automatically plug in their logo and their information, it automatically has it in there when they download that material. So we're not only concerned with helping our partners with our product in terms of the technical aspects, but we're also helping them in terms of getting it to market and helping their customers understand why it's useful and helpful.
Okay, and maybe as we sort of finish, if there was one or two pieces of sort of critical advice you'd offer a channel organization evaluating these type of solutions, what are the couple of sort of non-negotiables or that they should be looking for, when they're engaging with companies, asking them the questions about, what the platform can do?
So I think that, what I've been talking to partners about a lot is, right now we're in a situation where moving your unstructured data, those PDF files, those PowerPoint documents, et cetera, is kind of in the early majority, because a lot of people are doing it, but there's still a lot of people to move. So there's a lot of opportunity there for partners still to be moving clients to the cloud to make more money for the MSP and more productivity for their clients. So that's one story that they can tell. The other one that I think is even more interesting is when we're talking about compliance, especially when it comes to the SMB space. We're seeing a lot of these requirements coming down and they're affecting larger companies, right? But I think it's only a matter of time, and I'm looking 2 to 5 years out where we're in the early adopter stage of compliance in the SMB space. There are some highly regulated industries, in the States, it's around HIPAA, you've got PCI DSS requirements for credit cards. But I think the main driver over the next 2 to 5 years, because we're already hearing the insurance companies complain about it, is they're complaining about how much they're paying out in cybersecurity insurance claims. And so I think what you're going to see as a major driver of compliance and data protection over the next couple of years is the insurance companies coming in and saying, if you as a small business want some type of cybersecurity policy, you're going to need these types of data protection around, your unstructured data. And I think what our partners specifically have as an advantage is that they can put their clients onto the Egnyte platform now, strictly as a work from anywhere, move to the cloud, collaborate and share type of productivity enhancement. But then when they get those requirements pushed on them, it's very easy to layer, literally flipping a switch to layer on top that data protection that they're eventually going to be required to have.
And I'm presuming that your platform, as and when different sets of regulations, I know it's, as you've alluded to, it's quite a minefield and things are changing, but you, in as near sort of real time as is practical, you are able to update the platform to help people deal with all these different requirements as and when they come on stream. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we have an entire team that their only focus is keeping up to date with what's happening out there in the marketplace with all of these different compliance requirements and standards, and making sure that we're incorporating those into the platform as quickly as possible.
Excellent. Well, Eric, it's been great to chat to you and fascinating to learn more about the platform and the organization, and obviously today the relevance to channel organizations. So thanks very much indeed for your time.
You're welcome, and thanks for having me.